At the back door of Stamford Bridge, under the security light, something was waiting. And when N'Golo Kanté saw it, he fell to his knees. The match had ended 40 minutes ago. Chelsea 2, Manchester United 1. The crowd had filtered out into the London night. The floodlights were dimming one by one. Inside, teammates were showering, laughing, replaying moments from the game. N'Golo Kanté walked alone toward the players' exit. He always left quietly. No fanfare. No interviews unless required. Just a nod to security, a small wave to any fan still lingering, and then into the night. He pushed open the heavy metal door. Cold November air hit his face. Light rain. The kind that soaks you slowly without you noticing. The security light above the door cast a harsh yellow circle on the wet pavement. And standing in that circle, perfectly still, was an elderly woman. She was maybe 75. 78. Small frame. Worn raincoat. Headscarf tied under her chin against the drizzle. Her hands were clasped together at her chest, holding something Kanté couldn't quite see from the doorway. She wasn't moving. Wasn't calling out. Just standing there. Waiting. Kanté stopped. His hand still on the door. Security guard Marcus stepped forward from his post. "N'Golo, you want me to?" "No," Kanté said quietly. "It's okay." He stepped fully outside. The door clanged shut behind him. His footsteps echoed on the wet concrete as he walked toward the woman. 5 steps. 6. 7. She didn't move. Just watched him approach with eyes that held something Kanté couldn't name yet. Something that made his chest tighten. When he was 3 feet away, she spoke. Her voice was soft. Accented. French, but not Parisian French. West African French. The French of his childhood. "N'Golo Kanté," she said. Not a question. A statement. "Yes, madam." He stopped walking. Stood perfectly still in the rain. She held out what she'd been clutching. A photograph. Old. Edges worn soft from years of handling. The image was faded but clear enough. A young boy, maybe 8 years old, in a too large football jersey, smiling at the camera with a gap-toothed grin. Kanté stared at the photo. His breath caught. The woman's voice cracked slightly. "Do you remember this?" Kanté didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. But let's rewind. Because what happened in the next 60 seconds only makes sense if you understand what happened 23 years earlier. 1999. Rueil-Malmaison, France. A suburb west of Paris where immigrant families built lives from nothing. N'Golo Kanté was 8 years old. His father had died 2 years earlier. His mother, Pierrette, worked cleaning offices at night to keep food on the table for N'Golo and his siblings. Money was a concept that didn't exist in their household. There was only enough for this week. Or not enough. N'Golo wanted to play football. Every kid in the neighborhood did. But the local club required fees. Registration. Uniform. Boots. Things that might as well have been luxuries. Pierrette told him no. Not because she didn't want him to play. Because she'd done the math in her head 3 times and it didn't work. N'Golo didn't argue. He was 8 but he understood. He saw his mother's hands. Cracked from cleaning chemicals. Always moving. Always working. He wouldn't add to that burden. Instead, he played in the street. Barefoot sometimes. With a ball that was more tape than leather. He played until it was too dark to see, then played in his mind while lying in bed. One evening, a woman knocked on their door. Older. Not from their building. She introduced herself as Madame Okoye. She lived 3 blocks over. She'd been watching N'Golo play in the street. "Your son has a gift," she told Pierrette. Pierrette was tired. It had been a long shift. "Thank you, madam, but I want to pay his club fees," Madame Okoye interrupted. "Registration. Uniform. Boots. Everything." Silence in the small apartment. N'Golo, listening from the other room, held his breath. I can't accept that, Pierrette said quietly. We don't take charity. It's not charity, Madame Okoye said. It's investment. That boy will do something important someday. I don't know what. But I know it when I see it. And I'm old. I don't have much. But I have enough for this. Pierrette cried. Actually cried. Golo had rarely seen his mother cry. Why? Pierrette asked. You don't even know us. I know enough, Madame Okoye said. I know a mother who works herself to bone for her children. I know a boy who plays football until his feet bleed because it's the only thing that makes him feel free. That's enough. She paid for everything. 2 full seasons. And when Golo scored his first goal for the club, Madame Okoye was there in the stands, alone, clapping quietly. After the second season, her health declined. Golo's mother went to visit her in the hospital. Brought Ngolo along. He sat beside her bed, awkward and shy, not knowing what to say. Promise me something, Madame Okoye said, her voice weak but clear. Anything, Golo said. Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget the people who can't afford boots. Who play barefoot. Who have the gift but not the chance. She squeezed his hand. You be the chance for someone else. Someday. I promise, Golo said. Madame Okoye died 3 weeks later. Golo went to the funeral with his mother. They were the only people from his neighborhood who attended. Madame Okoye had no children. No close family. Just a few church friends and the Kantés. At the funeral, Pierrette learned something. Madame Okoye had been saving for years to return to Nigeria, to see her family one last time. She'd been close. Almost enough money. But she'd spent it on Golo instead. On boots and registration fees and a uniform. She'd chosen his dream over her own. Subscribe and leave a comment. Because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. 23 years later. November 2022. Outside Stamford Bridge. Golo Kanté stood in the rain staring at a photograph of himself at 8 years old, wearing the uniform Madame Okoye had paid for. The elderly woman holding the photo wasn't Madame Okoye. Madame Okoye was gone. This was her niece. Adiz. She'd traveled from Lagos. She kept this photo, Adiz said, her voice trembling. In her Bible. For 23 years. Even after she passed, we found it. Your mother had given it to her after your first season. She carried it until the day she died. Kanté's hands were shaking. Why are you here? Because, Adiz said, tears running down her weathered face. 3 months ago, my daughter's son, my grandson, wanted to play football. In Lagos. But the fees, we couldn't afford it. And I remembered this photo. I remembered the story my aunt told us. About the boy she believed in. She paused, composing herself. I came to London because I wanted to ask you for nothing. I came to show you this. To tell you that what she did mattered. That you became exactly what she believed you would become. That her sacrifice wasn't wasted. Kanté's jaw clenched. His eyes were wet. Not from rain. Your grandson, he said quietly. What's his name? Emmanuel. How old? 9. Kanté reached into his jacket. Pulled out his phone. Hand still shaking slightly. He opened his banking app. Typed. Transferred. Showed Adiz the screen. An amount. Enough for 10 years of club fees. Boots. Uniforms. Everything. Adiz gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. No. No, I didn't come here for. I know, Kanté said. His voice was barely above a whisper. But I made a promise. 23 years ago. In a hospital room. I promised I would be the chance for someone else. He looked at the photograph again. That 8-year-old boy with the gap-toothed smile. I've been keeping that promise, Kanté continued. Quietly. Every year. Kids in Paris. In London. In Mali. Places no cameras go. Because she taught me something that night in the hospital. What? Adiz whispered. That real power isn't in being seen. It's in being the reason someone else gets to dream. Away from the cameras, Kanté made a choice no one expected. Kanté knelt down. Right there on the wet pavement. Under that harsh security light. He placed both hands on the ground for a moment, head bowed, rain soaking through his jacket. Adiz moved toward him. Please, you don't have to. I need to, Kanté said. When he looked up, tears were streaming down his face, mixing with the rain. I need to thank her. And she's not here. So I thank the ground she walked on. The air she breathed. The world that held her long enough for her to save me. Marcus, the security guard, stood frozen 20 feet away. He'd seen a lot in 15 years working stadium security. He'd never seen this. Kanté stayed on his knees for 12 seconds. Perfectly still. Then he stood. Wiped his face with the back of his hand. Looked at Adiz. Will you send me a photo? He asked. Of Emmanuel. In his first uniform. Yes. Adiz sobbed. Yes. And tell him, Kanté said, his voice stronger now. Tell him that someone he'll never meet believed in him. Just like someone I barely knew believed in me. Tell him that's how it works. We don't pay it back. We pay it forward. He took the old photograph from Adiz's hands. Held it carefully. May I keep this? It's yours, she said. It was always yours. But what followed would stay with everyone who witnessed it, forever. Kanté walked Adiz to the street. Helped her into a taxi. Paid the fare to her hotel. Gave her his personal email, something he gave to almost no one, and told her to send updates about Emmanuel. When the taxi pulled away, Kanté stood alone under that security light. He looked at the photograph for a long time. Marcus approached carefully. Dolo? You okay? Kanté nodded. Smiled slightly. That quiet smile that didn't need words. Do you know what real strength is, Marcus? No, man. What? It's not winning trophies. It's not man of the match awards. Kanté looked at the photograph again. It's remembering who gave you the boots when you had none. And making sure the next kid gets theirs too. He put the photograph carefully in his jacket pocket. Over his heart. No cameras saw this. Marcus said quietly. Should I tell anyone? No, Kanté said. Some things don't need cameras. He walked to his car. Got in. Drove home through the London rain. 3 weeks later, in Lagos, a 9-year-old boy named Emmanuel put on his first real football uniform. Bright orange. New boots that actually fit. His grandmother watched him run onto the pitch, and she wept. In London, N'Golo Kanté received a photo on his phone. Emmanuel. Gap-toothed smile. Too large jersey. Exactly like the photo from 23 years ago. Kanté saved it. Printed it. Framed it beside the old photo of himself. 2 boys. 2 generations. Same dream. Same chance. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. Years later, when journalists asked Kanté about his greatest moment in football, they expected him to name a trophy. A title. A perfect tackle. He never did. He just smiled that quiet smile and say, the greatest moments happen when no one's watching. The photograph stayed in his jacket. He carried it to every match. Every training session. A reminder. Not of what he'd become, but of who made it possible. And of the promise he'd keep until the day he could no longer run. In the years that followed, Kanté never spoke publicly about that night outside Stamford Bridge. But those who knew him noticed changes. Small ones. The kind only visible if you paid attention. He started arriving earlier to training. Not to practice more, he already trained harder than anyone. But to watch the academy kids. The young ones? Especially the ones who showed up in worn boots. whose parents sat in beat-up cars in the parking lot, waiting. One morning, a 13-year-old academy player named James found a package in his locker. New boots. Top of the line. No note. No explanation. Just his exact size. It happened again. Different kid. Different month. Always anonymous. Always perfect fit. The coaching staff knew. They never said anything. Because they understood, some gifts lose their power when you announce them. Kanté's teammates noticed too. After away matches, he'd disappear for 20 minutes before boarding the team bus. They assumed he was doing extra cool-down exercises. Stretching. Being the consummate professional. But security guards at various stadiums knew different. They'd see him at back entrances. Side doors. Talking quietly with elderly women. Single mothers. Immigrants working cleaning crews. Always the same pattern, brief conversation, something exchanged, Kanté walking away before anyone could take a photo. At Cobham training facility, the woman who cleaned the locker rooms, Mrs. Adissa from Ghana, had a grandson back in Accra who dreamed of football. She mentioned it once to Kanté in passing. Just casual conversation while she emptied bins. 3 weeks later, her grandson was enrolled in the best youth academy in Accra. Full scholarship. She never asked how. Kanté never told. When teammates asked him about rumors of his generosity, he'd shrug. Change subject. Redirect to the match ahead. The session just finished. Anything but himself. Why don't you want credit? A younger player once asked him after training. Kanté was tying his boots. He paused. Looked at the old photograph he kept in his locker, the one of 8-year-old him, gap-toothed and grateful. Because, he said quietly, the woman who saved my life never asked for credit either. She just did it. That's how it's supposed to work. He stood. Picked up his training bag. The moment you do good things for recognition, he continued, it stops being good. It becomes performance. And the people you're helping can feel the difference. On his final day at Chelsea, when he cleaned out his locker for the last time, he left something behind. Taped to the inside of the locker door where the next player would find it. The photograph. The one Adiz had given him outside Stamford Bridge. And beneath it, a handwritten note in French. Pour celui que vient après moi, n'oublie jamais d'où tu viens. Sois la chance de quelqu'un d'autre. NK. For whoever comes after me. Never forget where you come from. Be someone else's chance. NK. The next player to use that locker was a 19-year-old from Senegal. First professional contract. Immigrant family. Father worked 3 jobs. He read the note. Looked at the photo. Cried in the empty locker room. And quietly began his own list of kids who needed boots.